Hi everyone, here's what's bothering me today. Once again, the Liberal government of Canada has refused to pass universal pharmacare during a pandemic. The motion was brought forward by the NDP and supported by the Green Party, and the Liberals and the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois pretty much all to a T voted against it. Here's what makes part of this so infuriating. The Liberals have been promising since I was 9 years old that there would be pharmacare coming if they had been elected. So for give or take 24 years, damn near a quarter of a century, Liberals have been promising pharmacare and still not delivering on it. And to make matters worse, this is on top of the fact that their original Medicare bill called for the implementation of universal pharmacare. And I'm talking the original bill, like back in the 60s when it was signed by Lester B. Pearson, who's arguably the least terrible prime minister we've had. This is the problem with constantly alternating between the two parties, whatever color they may be, is that you end up with these people who claim they're going to represent you, and yet they don't. So what's the point of people supporting the Liberal Party? What is it that they've really done concretely that will stick out as a legacy since whatever it was, 2015? What is the legacy? Okay, legalized weed. What else? Because a lot of what the Liberal government is taking credit for doing and supporting Canadians during this pandemic was proposed by the NDP. The expanded CERB coverage, you have the NDP to thank for that. The emergency wage subsidy, first proposed by the NDP. The idea of a universal basic income largely being supported by the NDP and the Green Party. And what makes all of this worse is that across all party lines, like every single one of the 5 parties that are in our parliament, there is support for a wealth tax, for UBI, and there was something else on it. There's like another third thing that apparently we all agree on. Oh, right, pharmacare. Oh, and electoral reform. So a majority of Canadians, including those who vote for these parties, including the Conservative Party, have these positions. And if the idea of a democracy is that we elect people to represent us and our interests and put them forward in the political arena that is the House of Commons, then why do they vote against it? Why have the Liberals, the Conservatives, and the Bloc all voted against a wealth tax, electoral reform, pharmacare? Stop voting for people who do not have your interests at heart. In terms of the policies that Canadians support, Canadians want to see meaningful climate change and see it being addressed. This is not an uncontroversial opinion across the broadest swath of Canadian society. And yet, here we are with a government literally throwing a hissy fit because a pipeline was canceled by the Americans. They talk about, we're doing climate action. We're going to plant 2 billion trees. Ask them when they've started doing that, because the answer is they haven't, because they don't intend to, because Liberals are all about good, pretty words and optics, but never about follow through. Liberals are the people who will say, we acknowledge that this is Indigenous land, and yet they will be the first to send in the RCMP to quell any aspect of the land back movement. Liberals are the ones who are now arguing against the legality and the constitutionality of their own original Medicare bill in order to cover up the egregiousness that is them refusing to implement pharmacare, especially during a pandemic. This is the sad reality we are living in Canada and in many corners of the West, where these parties, including the ostensibly progressive parties, are not actually that progressive and not taking meaningful action. And for some reason, we still keep repeating the same cycle and expecting things to change when the two parties who consistently vote in favor of the things that we broadly as Canadians want continue to enjoy the least support in Parliament. Canadians want to see climate change addressed. We want electoral reform. We want UBI. We want pharmacare, universal pharmacare. We want all these things that are not impossible to achieve. And the only parties who consistently put forward motions and support those motions are the NDP and the Green Party. It's time to change the dynamic of how we vote in Canada. And the fact that we probably aren't until it's far too late is definitely what's bothering me today.